Hey everybody, it's the Burger Dude, and today I want to show you how I made the best grilled cheese of my life, and it also just so happens to be vegan. I had to conduct a few tests in order to get there, so we're going to make a whole bunch of grilled cheeses today as well. We're going to make one classic style with no fancy footwork, just a straight up traditional grilled cheese. Then I'm going to veganize Chef John's famous Inside Out grilled cheese, and then last but definitely not least, the best grilled cheese I've ever made featuring a Cheeto style ingredient. In addition to that, I'm going to experiment with different ways to get vegan cheese to melt, since we all know that can sometimes be a struggle. But enough yapping, let's make some vegan grilled cheese. So let's start with a classic grilled cheese, and one of the first things we should discuss is the bread. One of the most frequently asked questions I get is about where to find vegan bread. But for me, the vast majority of bread at the stores near me are vegan. The only ones that typically aren't are brioche, Hawaiian, and anything with honey in the name. But obviously check the ingredients to be sure. Now for our grilled cheese, good old white bread is the obvious choice. I like using a thicker cut like this Texas toast. As you can see here, it's a basic white bread, only about twice as thick as normal. You can also use this bread as well, since it's cut kind of thick. This is actually one of my favorite breads out there, so if you can find it, it's highly recommended. And of course, I really think sourdough is a solid choice too, so feel free to use whatever bread you like, but like I said, today I'll be using Texas toast. For the cheese, I really like these Daiya American slices. Daiya has a bad rep because it used to be the worst vegan cheese on the market, like by a lot. But they've done a total 180 over the past year or so, and these American slices are some of my favorite, but use whatever cheese you like. Now the next thing to talk about is the butter. I've got this Melt brand, which I rather like. I left it out because we want it to be at room temperature, so it's easily spreadable. Nothing worse than thrashing your bread with some hard-ass butter. I left it out for about 15 minutes or so, and it wasn't quite soft enough, so I just nuked it in the microwave for about 8 seconds, and it was perfect. If you need to microwave yours, just do it for a few seconds at a time, as it will melt very quickly. So now that our butter is softened, let's give our Texas toast a good slathering and really try to get complete coverage. Use plenty of butter, but don't use too much. Just do your best to get a nice even coat on there. And then next what we want to do is get a cold pan. And this was something I learned when doing my research. You don't want to throw your sandwich on a hot pan because you won't melt the cheese without burning your bread. On top of that, we want to cook it on medium-low. So these do take a little bit of time, but I swear it's totally worth it. Now, I kind of biffed up this first one. I forgot that I wanted to dry toast the bread first, so that when I added the cheese, the residual heat would help melt it. I'm not sure if it has that big of an impact, but any little thing helps when it comes to melting vegan cheese. So after I realized my mistake, I just simply started over, and yeah, maybe the butter melted a little, but it really didn't matter. This thing turned out great anyway, so don't worry about it. And once you've dry toasted your bread for a bit, what we're gonna do is flip it, and then we're gonna add our vegan cheese and then our other piece of bread. And that's it, not too difficult, right? At this point, all you gotta do is relax and let the grilled cheese do its thing. I would say let this grill for at least 5 minutes and probably closer to 8. Remember, we want this on medium-low. Check it around 5 minutes though. You really don't wanna burn your bread. Once it looks good, give her a flip and look at that. Make sure to block the camera with your hand so no one can enjoy the beautiful brown buttery bread you got. Okay, there you go, that's better. Now I know I said to relax, but I was a little worried the cheese wouldn't melt, so I went ahead and covered it with a dome, and then a few minutes later I unveiled it and the cheese did indeed melt, though maybe not with the kind of gumption we would like. I flipped it over to see if the other side got nice and brown, and look at that, it did. So now all we need to do is remove it from the pan, and it's time to eat. So I went ahead and I cut it in half, hoping for the cheese pull that we all know and love, and nope, didn't get it. However, this was still super good and I have no regrets. The bread was browned perfectly, the cheese was super melty and delicious, and this was without a doubt a solid grilled cheese. I mean, look at that, just perfect simplicity. But can we make it slightly more complicated and better? Absolutely. Now, the next grilled cheese we're gonna make is the Inside Out one by Chef John, and it's called Inside Out because we're gonna grill some cheese on the outside of the sandwich, which will create a crispy, cheesy crust. This was my first time making this, and my feelings were a little mixed, but more on that in a bit. I'm starting off with a Daiya block because this grilled cheese requires shredded cheese, and I prefer shredding my own, but again, use whatever cheese you like. And I want to say it's as easy as just grilling the sandwich with some cheese on the outside, but my ding-dong brain had a hard time figuring out when to add the cheese or when I should butter the bread. I'm sure I made it more complicated than it is. I could have just watched this video again, but I was convinced I could figure it out, and eventually I did. What I ended up doing was grilling the bread and butter. I tried to apply some on the other side while it was grilling, but the heat was already melting it. So I just waited till they were golden brown, removed them from the pan, and then added some more vegan butter. Then grilled them on the other side, added my vegan cheese, then the other piece of bread, make sure it's on the right side. Grill that for about 4 minutes or so, then give it a flip. We're gonna add some cheese on the outside, grill that for 4 minutes or so again. Then we're gonna flip it again, add more cheese. We're gonna grill it for another 4 minutes or so, and I bet you didn't see this coming, but you're gonna flip it again, and then you're gonna grill it for one last 4 minutes, and there you go, that's basically it. And I gotta say, I was super excited for this one. Now, we didn't get the cheese pull again, but you know what? It didn't matter. This thing was so freaking good, so ridiculously cheesy and indulgent. My only complaint was it was kind of greasy. I know that sounds weird, but the outer layer of cheese was maybe a bit much. Don't get me wrong, I'd still eat like 10 of these. However, I came up with an idea to make this even better. But first, I wanted to see if I could maybe get a better cheese pull, so I conducted a couple of experiments. And the first thing I did was to use my trusty sodium citrate. If you've been here recently, you know that this is my favorite way to make a cheese sauce, but I wanted to see if it would work in a grilled cheese. So all we got to do is combine some of it with a little bit of water. We're going to bring that to a boil, and then we're going to add in some vegan cheese shreds. I'm using Violife. We're going to melt that all up, and then we have our beautiful velvety cheese sauce. I mean, look at that. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to a silicone mold I got, and then we're going to add that to the freezer to see if it'll firm up and maybe be sliceable so we can make some American slices that'll hopefully stretch. However, after a couple hours, it was still pretty soft and I was getting impatient. It looks a little weird, I know, but you know what? American cheese is pretty weird, so I feel like I nailed it. And now we're going to take some of that weird vegan cheese goop and do our best to get it on some bread, grill it like we do, and then with bated breath, we'll slice it in half. And look at that, maybe not a traditional cheese pull, but better than what we've had thus far. And to be honest, I still didn't care. This was so much better than the Daya slices. The texture was just ridiculous, and honestly, better than I remembered non-vegan American cheese. I mean, at this point, this was the best grilled cheese of my life, vegan or not. Everything about it was just spot on, perfect. And on top of that, bonus points for being able to scoop up the cheese that escaped. I mean, check this out. Look at that, just frickin' luxurious, I would say even. But I was curious, could we make some slices? So I froze some more overnight and it came out rock hard. I had to let it thaw a bit, and then I was actually able to slice it up with this mandolin. Now maybe they came out a little bit ragged. I think the freezing caused the moisture to expand and create some pockets, kind of like twice frozen tofu. So the texture wasn't as smooth as I'd hoped, but that being said, they were definitely floppy like American cheese, so there's that. Then, as nature dictates, I went ahead and grilled it up, and it came out pretty much like it did in its weird goopy form as well. So I'm not really sure if it's worth the effort, except, you know, it's a bit easier to apply it to the bread. But as you can see, it's just a big old cheese waterfall, which is never a bad thing if you ask me. Now, let's make the best grilled cheese of my life. I know I said the last one was, but this one topped it. I thought, what if we grind up some Cheetos and grill the bread in that? Now, if you're in the US, we don't have vegan Cheetos, but what we do have is these, which are super duper good. The Dragon Puffs by Vegan Robs. They're slightly spicy, but honestly, it's just a baby kick. Nothing major, so don't worry about it. If you're in the UK, these are accidentally plant-based. You can tell they're English since flavor is misspelled. I bought these in a drunken stupor on Amazon in case you wondered how I got them. I didn't fly to England for Cheetos. And here's what the Vegan Robs look like, pretty much like a Cheeto. I added them to the blender and they were annihilated instantly. And since this grilled cheese video is pushing 10 minutes, I'll just jump ahead to the end since you really should know how to make a grilled cheese by this point. Just coat the outside liberally with the Vegan Robs or Cheetos dust and grill it up, and there you go. Now, the reason I think this is the best grilled cheese is because it's like the Chef John one, only not nearly as greasy. We get that crispy, cheesy crust without any grease overwhelming the entire sandwich. And this was absolutely phenomenal, almost to the point that I'm not sure I can ever have a grilled cheese without it. Really, really ridiculously good, and I really do hope you all try this out, or at the very least, learn something and had fun with me on my grilled cheese journey. If you do make it, let me know how it goes. Tag me in your photos on Instagram. I hope you're all doing great, and I'll see you next time.